Hey, shalom and good Tuesday, everybody. It's time to glean in the Word. I'm hoping that you're standing strong on the rock, even though we might be going through an earthquake. Hold on. That's the rock shaking off debris. Those trees that are rotten on the inside. You ever seen a tree that looks strong on the outside, but when the winds blow, it falls over and you see it's corrupt on the inside, rotten? Sometimes termites get up in there, constantly eating at the strength it thought it had to keep itself standing upright. Hey, I was thinking about Israel and having patience, trust, and faith in God. If we're having patience, that means we're enduring despite of. Having patience means you're expecting, even though it might not be here yet. You're not anxiously waiting, but you're grounded. You're dug in, patiently waiting on Abba. Why are you so sure? Because you trust him. You trust in his word. You have faith. You believe what God has spoken into your life. So when the children of Israel were delivered from their captives, a deliverance that Abba spoke to Abraham about hundreds of years earlier, before they were even born, he also promised them their own land, a land flowing with milk and honey. By the way, the land he's referring to, that was his land. He gives it to whomever he chooses to give it to. In fact, prior to Israel, Yah allowed the Canaanites to live in that land first. That's why it was called Canaan land. But they plunged so deep into idolatry and sin that they defiled his land, so much so that he decided to kick them out and give it to another. You have any idea who this other is? The other is Israel. Now, I need you to understand this. The Canaanites had no idea that an eviction was coming. They were going on with business as usual, eating, drinking, giving in marriage. Hello? They were even prospering. Yet all the while, behind the scenes, the highest has declared judgment on that nation over 400 years before it would even come to pass. Wow. Saints, Canaan's fate was sealed the moment God made the promise to Abraham in Genesis chapter 15, verse 13 through 14. And Yah said to Abram, "Know for a certainty," you hear that? Know this for a fact, Abraham, that thy seed, even though you don't have them yet, that thy seed shall be a stranger, a ger, a Gentile, in a land that is not theirs, talking about Egypt, and they shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. Verse 14 says, "And also that very nation whom they shall serve, I will judge, and afterwards they shall come out with great substance." Now I'm going to drop something to you, folks. Yes, this is speaking of Egypt, but it's also speaking of other types and shadows of Egypt. You think about it. For all our struggles, no matter where we are, all of our Egypt are going to ultimately one day reap a reward if we endure. Now back to this. He told this to Abraham hundreds of years before Israel was even born, the people, the 12 tribes. And all this time, Canaan land is thriving right now. See, that's scary. God declared a judgment on these people, and they didn't even know it. We could be walking around thinking we're blessed. I mean, have it going on with the things and gifts that God has actually given us, just like Canaan. But if we begin to abuse his grace, not following, not hearing his word, but establishing our own, we too will find ourselves being kicked out of Eden. Yes, just like Adam and Eve were. They began to establish their own word, remember? And somehow they found a way to justify it. This is exactly what happened in Canaan. And this is what will happen again, saints. This is likened to the door of the groom's house being shut in our face. Let me in, Lord. And what does he say? I never knew you. It's the same idea. It's like those trees I mentioned. On the outside, it might look like we're blessed, strong and sturdy. But as it is written in Malachi chapter 2 and verse 2, the Lord says, if you will not shema, if you will not hear, and if you will not lay it to heart, take it seriously, to give glory unto my name, saith the Lord of hosts, I will even send a curse upon you, and I will curse your blessings. Whoa. Yea, I have cursed them already, because you do not take it to heart. That's exactly what happened in Canaan land. And it took about 400 plus years for it to come to pass. Yeshua said the same thing in Matthew chapter 7, verse 23 through 25. And then I will profess unto them, those who came to him in that day saying, Lord, Lord, he says, then I will profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you that work iniquity. Therefore, whosoever hears these sayings of mine and do them, I will liken him unto a wise man who built his house upon a rock. Talk about the days of Noah. That's the flood talk. And the rains descended and the floods came and the winds blew and beat upon that house, and it fell not, for it was founded, rooted upon a rock. Verse 26, and everyone that hears these sayings of mine and does not do them shall be likened unto a foolish man who built his house upon sand. Remember, sand is always equal to man's tradition. Verse 27, and the rains descended and the floods came and the winds blew and beat upon that house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it. I always associate that with the great falling away. Some are going to be rooted in men. Some are going to be rooted on the rock, our firm foundation. Now, as far as these rains and flood waters and winds, who sends these things? Yah himself. He is in control. And ultimately, they come to test us, to try our faith, which is exactly what happened to Canaan. And they fell miserably and got kicked out. And it must happen to the church. This is why the master said, in the end, everyone's going to be tested. It's in the book of Revelation. So God promised Israel Canaan land, which, as we know, he kicked them out because of their gross sins. Now I want you to imagine Israel's position. After 400 years of being a slave in the land of your captives, planting, building, making the land great for the slave masters. Now you have a promise of your own land, and not just any land, you guys, but God's favorite piece of land. As it is written in Deuteronomy chapter 11 and verse 12, it states, it is a land for which the Lord your God cares. He personally cares for this land. It says, the eyes of the Lord your God are always on this land, from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. So this is something special that he's offering to give to Israel that Canaan took for granted. So you can have a good thing so long that you become so used to it that you're looking somewhere else, not realizing the blessing that you already have. But no worries. You take the gift for granted and it'll be given to somebody else. So understand this. Even though the Canaanites were turning and doing evil in the sight of the Lord, the land of the land of Canaan, it was still blessed. Even though the land was sealed for judgment, God's eyes were still upon it. Now Israel, coming out of Egypt, after hearing this report about receiving your own land, flowing with milk and honey, I bet inside they felt like they were getting ready to enter into paradise. Remember how Moses described it in verse 11? He said it had mountains and valleys that drink in the rains from heaven. Wow. No more trouble, no more suffering and abuse. The racism we endured for 400 years, all that we're leaving behind. All that is going to remain in Egypt. We're free now. No more tears. The struggle is over. For our God is with us now. The Lord of hosts goes before us. But what they didn't know, what they didn't realize, is that there's a process that must take place first before entering. A shaking and a falling away must happen first. See, coming out, that's just the beginning. That's like your birthday, the beginning of life. But with all births, there's years of growing pains, maturing. God has delivered us from our personal Egypt, the bondage and the sin of this world. But that's just the beginning. Saints, we're in a stage of growing pains, maturing. We're just as Israel was. We have to learn warfare. We're going to have to fight many spiritual battles, which are stages of our growth, growing pains that are shaping and molding us into the stature and likeness of his Son. And that's going to take patience. You know, Israel, it took them 40 years, not just 3 days, but 40 years growing, sifting. Noah's Ark, 40 days. And of course, Yeshua, 40 days in the wilderness, being tried before he entered into his purpose. We're in a time of testing, purification, and cleansing. The bride is making herself ready for that ultimate promised land. Being born again is just the beginning. Just like the Israelites went through their 40 years, we too, in a spiritual sense, have to go through our time of cleansing and being perfected with patience. We're going to face all kinds of trials and tests, not to destroy us, but to actually heal us, to develop us, to strengthen the spirit so that we ultimately learn to walk by faith and not by sight. Remember when they were between the sea and Pharaoh's army? They thought it was all over. They began to want to stone Moses, the one who brought them out. When we go through various issues and it looks like the world is crumbling before us, we want to point the finger to God. Lord, why? Instead of standing still and seeing his salvation. Think about Moses' words. Israel, face your fear. These Egyptians, you will never see them again. Sometimes God wants us to face our troubles, standing on him, showing even our fear that God is greater. As we grow, let's learn not to worry about anything, but pray about everything, waiting on God. Remembering that he holds tomorrow. He already sees tomorrow in advance. And even though we walk through the valley and the shadow of death, we have to grow and learn that he is with us, never forsaking us, even when our flesh is weak. Listen, Messiah taught us when he too had experienced struggles. Remember when he was in the garden? So much pressure that he sweated blood. Whoa. Look up the amount of stress you have to be under to sweat blood. But his famous words were, even under that stress, he said, nevertheless, not my will be done, but thine. We're going to all have to face our desert trials, our periods of seclusion prior to entering into the promise, the goal or the purpose that God has for us. In the meantime, let's let patience have its perfecting work in us. Our Father in heaven, he knows how much we can bear. He called us out of death into the promise of life. And our Master is able to finish the work that he started in us. Remember his words? I am the beginning and I am the ending. I am the resurrection and I am the life. I am the author and finisher of your faith. And I am able to keep you from falling. So keep moving forward, Israel. The promise of the kingdom is at hand. Meanwhile, remember 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 17. For our light affliction, which is but for a moment, it works for us a far more exceeding and eternal, not temporary, but eternal weight of glory. The weight of this world might feel heavy, but for the weight of glory that you're going to receive if you endure, far exceeds it. It's going to be worth it. That's the ultimate promised land that he has for us. Remember, coming out of Egypt was just the beginning. Now he's teaching us spiritual warfare so that we can endure and overcome this world. Don't turn like the Canaanites and be kicked out. There's a lot of deception out there that will try to convince you you're actually worshiping God when you're not. Remember Jude chapter 1 and verse 3. Beloved, when I gave all diligence to write unto you the common salvation, it was also needful for me to write unto you and exhort you that you should earnestly contend for the faith that was once delivered to the saints. Shalom in Yeshua.